we gotta talk about Lil Yachty.
Oh, leading the show with Lil Yachty.
We starting the segment in the
Lil
Bo, exactly. We starting it off with Lil Yachty. I think that if you guys have not been living under a rock, and by the way, I have to say this, if you're over the age of 30, there's a good chance you don't put the level of respect that a lot of the younger kids is starting to like put on Yachty's name. And so with that being said, Lil Yachty is recently been in the news for a lot of different things, right? He's responded to the Drake and Kendrick beef a lot. He's been a very vocal member on that topic. More recently, he's been going back and forth with a artist that was in his Concrete Boys collective called Karrahboo. But in general, man, I think that Yachty in this newest back and forth with Karrahboo has been talking a lot of big talk. He been, Yachty as a songwriter has been in question for some and not in question for some others. But he mentioned that he wrote Karrahboo's lyrics.
All of them.
All of the lyrics. Excuse me.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying
Including
that.
freestyles.
Including the On the Radar free, so that people even rock with her for in the first place.
Exactly.
So it's like at the end of the day, it's time to have a discussion about Lil Yachty. It's time to have a real discussion. Is he really the MVP of rap and people don't know it? That's what I think. I think it's time to have that combo. He one of the low-key MVPs. Q.
Okay.
Do people need to put more respect on Lil Yachty's name? Yes or no?
Okay. So
answer the question first.
It's complicated.
And then go.
It's Avril Lavigne complicated, brother.
Okay.
First and foremost, yes, Lil Yachty deserves a lot of the respect that he's getting. Because I do think he gets respect, mainly from his peers. Because, it's one thing to know these people. Like Lil Yachty is clearly popular. He knows a lot of people. He started with QC and he was working with those guys. He knows Drake. Obviously, everybody knows that. He's worked with J. Cole, et cetera, et cetera. To be able to know these guys is one thing, but to be able to have these guys want to work with you means they have a level of respect for you that's there. What's interesting as a hip hop artist is that sometimes it just takes being cool on the mic to make an impact. So I think after he dropped Poland, particularly Poland, a lot of people were like, yo, Drake even mentioned, Drake said, yo, like, do you guys understand how cool it is from an artistic standpoint for somebody to come up with a song like Poland? That means they just are so comfortable in their skin. And, I'm paraphrasing, by the way, but pretty much saying they so comfortable in their skin, like their art speaks volumes, whatever they put out is going to be, fire, whatever. So I do think peers respect them. But you can't tell me my ears are lying. I hear certain Lil Yachty verses that I'm just like, I don't want to hear again. Throughout the years, there's been Lil Yachty verses that I'm just like, I don't want to hear again. But overall, I do think he's very talented.
Right.
I do think he's probably one of the most important voices in hip hop, if not the most important voice this year in hip hop. Just because, I said this before, he bridges the gap between the old school and the new school, which is literally the most important thing I think hip hop can use right now. So he's important. Now, I wanted to preface this comment by earlier you asked me why is it confusing, because I think he surprisingly talks bigger than that. All this praise that I'm giving you, he talks bigger than that.
Okay.
And that's where I think, if you ask me the question, do you think Lil Yachty is as big as how he carries himself and talks? I will say no. But if you're telling me his impact on hip hop, if that's a big one, yeah, for sure. I do think so.
So, okay. Fair. But see, the reason I asked that question is because I think it's time for people to start knowing that impact. It reminds me of, a lot of people thought Young Berg was a joke, right? People remember the chain incident in Detroit where Trick and a lot of the members, they bullied him. They pretty much like ran him out of hip hop as a rapper. Remember, Young Berg was hella commercially successful.
Oh, yeah.
And then it became a point where he was looked at as a joke. And he, as talented as he was, doubled down on being behind the scenes as a producer, executive producer, rebranded himself as hitmaker. Now he's arguably one of the most important producers in R&B/rap in easily the last 6-7 years. A lot of people don't know that though. So my thing with Yachty is very similar, right? Like it's about, we have to start knowing what he's a part of. And some people may know this, but his imprint in the female rap movement has been monumental.
Started with
City Girls. Him ghostwriting.
I'm sure he did probably more than that.
No, for sure. But like the whole Act Right.
People started knowing
Act Right, that movement with the City Girls. City Girls sparked the movement. You can say whatever you want about City Girls and who they are, whether you like the music, but they are a part of this new wave of female rap. But my point is, Yachty is actually very crucial in that as well. Not only that, from a production ear to the streets, ear for production standpoint,
he understands it.
He's working with some of the best behind the scenes, the Drakes of the world. Right. And so when you hear Drake pipe up Yachty and say, yo, Yachty is one of the guys, a lot of people who are not familiar, they're like, what the hell is Drake talking about?
Because his versatility, like I've heard him on Detroit style beats. I've heard him. He has a whole project. He has a whole project with James Blake. Not James Blake.
James Blake.
James Blake.
He dropped the album with James Blake.
Whole project with James Blake. So that's versatility.
Even his own album, the Let's Start Here album,
super
alternative R&B. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's the best artist. I want to be clear. No. But for real talk, for Yachty to come from, we talked about this on the last episode. Shout out to Scotty. We touched a little bit on the XXL list. And with 2016 being one of the most important years of the XXL list, if you were to rank all of them dudes on that list, I guarantee you, at the time as opposed to now, Yachty would not have been in the top 3 in terms of longevity.
I mean, but he's always dropped pretty good rap verses. Like mixtape, like what he did on Chance mixtape.
Bro, I've never
really good.
I've never seen, and you can go right at this. I've never seen somebody that was once looked at as a joke.
Literally.
Let's be clear.
Yeah, literally.
Yachty was looked at as a joke in mainstream rap. The old heads saying, who the hell is this guy? He doesn't respect real hip hop. We don't like this guy. Get him out of here. To now where he's become 7 years later, it's groundbreaking.
Instrumental.
It is hella important. You know what I'm saying? That needs to be said.
But I know it's probably time's up. 30 seconds.
We got a couple.
But like, so why are we saying this? Why are we bringing up this topic? It's because Lil Yachty, the 2 incidents, recently, the Karrahboo one that you brought up, where Karrahboo, you mentioned she was on Concrete Boys, she got dropped. Not even her, which I thought was crazy. She wasn't even the person that was critical of Concrete Boys, because there was rumors saying that she was mistreated with Concrete Boys. She didn't come out and say anything. It was actually a user, a fan, that came out and said something, and Yachty just went off on her.
Did you see her response?
Yeah, I saw the response. She was like, yo, you're bullying me, this is that.
Nah, it was disrespectful. She told Yachty to man up.
Yeah, I did see that.
She's like, yo, I didn't even. She's like, yo, you getting triggered by a fan? Man up.
That's another thing. But there's that, and then his producer homie, that pretty much he said, yo,
Mitch.
I don't want to work.
Talking about
Mitch.
Yeah.
I said I don't want to work on the podcast no more, because in the podcast there was the clip of him pretty much saying like, before you weren't nobody. So when I say, yo, like Yachty's talking big talk, like what was that fact? Like, how do you feel about that? Those 2 incidents? Because to me, forget Yachty. Just from a standpoint of when you are in that position, like, do you feel like it's foul to be doing some of the stuff that he's doing to like some of his friends and some of the people that he work with? Like that, how you feel about that?
Well, to provide a little bit more context, him and his homie Mitch, they do a podcast called A Safe Space, and they were on the podcast. They had a guest, Key Glock.
Yeah,
Young Dolph's man.
Yep.
Rest in peace to Young Dolph. But Key Glock was actually talking about being in a position of being a breadwinner, right? And being the guy who provided opportunities, feeling like the people you putting on are not really putting in real work, right? And having that resentment towards the people that you are helping out because you the one in position. So that's actually the backdrop of the convo.
Yeah.
And then Mitch came out and said what he said. Yachty basically chimed in and kind of like felt where Key Glock was coming from. And they had a little on-air moment that probably should have been behind the scenes. But I think that Yachty's in a position that a lot of people just naturally are not in, right? Like to be able to be in position to put people on, give them opportunity. I think naturally you're going to be looked at as the bad guy, right? For the most part, if you don't approach that convo with like a little bit of humility, right? As soon as you start flexing and acting like I'm the man, yo, you should have, why you not putting in work?
Ungrateful. You're ungrateful.
Yeah, you start to now look like a bit of a jerk, right? Because a lot of people can side with a Mitch. Most people can side with Mitch. Most people can't identify with Yachty, the one with the bread.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying? So
for sure.
I do think that's the silver lining of it all. But long story short, Yachty is talking a little spicy these days. With that being said, he's talking a little spicy. Like I do think Yachty respectfully needs to
tone it down.
Be mindful of his tone and how he approaches, even giving opportunity to people, because you can come across as someone who's a bit of a jerk, and people were killing him in the comments for that. It's because of how he came off, and so if that's not truly who he is, he needs to be more mindful of just making sure
you think he should be more mindful.
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
Same thing with the Karrahboo situation, because it's also a weird dynamic when you work with women. There's always going to be that power dynamic, so you got to really treat it with some delicacy. Right, when you're talking, naturally, people, if a woman says I was pressured or I felt bullied, there's a lot of people who just gonna rock with that, regardless of what Yachty has to say. So, I just think a bit more delicate nature has to be approached when you're the boss.
That is
you
true.
the boss.
That's true.
You the boss,
true.
Yachty. Yachty's now a boss.
Is he the biggest boss?
Nah, that's only one guy, man.
Is he the biggest boss?
Jesus is the biggest boss. It ain't Ross.
My Lord and Savior. It ain't Ross.
Listen to the full episode, link below.